Thank you for listening to this training audio. We hope it inspires and equips you. This recording is by Lynn McCann, speaking at our Belonging event looking at reflecting, reading and responding to behaviour of children with additional needs on the 20th of January 2020.
My name's Lynn McCann and in my day job I'm actually a specialist autism teacher working around the whole of Lancashire and beyond, but in church I've worked with children's workers and in children's work and also with adults with learning disabilities. I helped run a group for adults with learning disabilities for about 12 years, learning a lot of things along the way. At the moment I'm at Buckshaw Village Church and we're kind of finding our way of how we can make it more accessible for all kinds of people, and as Sarah knows I'm quite persistent and I keep coming up with masses of ideas and some of them are good. That's how I kind of think. So I'm very enthusiastic and very passionate about this topic, but thinking about this topic tonight I've had a lot of stress about it because I just so want to get it right, and I so want to help children who struggle with behaviour and managing in situations that we put them in. So hopefully, I am focusing on children with additional needs, but also I hope it might help all children as well. So let's start with a prayer. Heavenly Father, we just invite you to be with us tonight, to share your wisdom and your heart with us. We pray that we will honour you and learn from you and be able to go away and share the gospel and be compassionate and kind to children who struggle and welcome them into our church families with all joy together. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay, so there's a tiny bit of talking. We will have a little bit of a break halfway through just to get up and have a bit of comfort. If anybody feels uncomfortable, I don't mind at all. If you fidget or you get up and walk around, stand at the back, that's absolutely fine. Just make sure that you're comfortable, especially on late on a Monday night after the first day back at work in the week. So my first question really when we're looking at this topic is to really think, make my things work. Where do I... there you go. Thinking about behaviour, that's why you've come. That was the topic that we posted. So the question is really just to talk to somebody next to you and to be really, really honest. There's no judgment at all, no condemnation, nothing I'm going to sort of pull a face at. Believe me, I've seen every behaviour there is to see in my time as a special needs teacher and as a mainstream teacher and in Sunday club and everything. So let's just be honest with you, have a little chat and talk about the kind of behaviours that challenge you. Off you go. Okay, this seems to be a little slight lull. So what I'd like to ask, would anybody like to share some of those things?
When a child continues to make noises, that's just, it distracts you when you're trying to think of what you're saying, and it's just a continual.
I'm sure lots of you can think of distraction type behaviours, can't they? Again, disrupting the sort of the flow of what you're thinking, distracting you from it. Thank you for that. Anything else?
Generally,
that's all right.
Generally non-compliant behaviour. If the child's just refusing to accept you as the leader with a degree of authority to control things.
Okay, so non-compliant behaviour, refusing to do things. Thank you.
Kind of on the same kind of line, but it's just like nothing's right. So whatever you try and suggest, there's no right answer. If you know what I mean, and to get them out of the situation, or to help them, because you don't even want to help the person, do you? Do you know what I mean? So it's just how do you help that person correctly, best for them and for everybody else in the class or whatever.
Yeah.
Got one. I could sort of try and run a little bit of football, and if decision goes against one individual, That's the end of the world, stones off.
Some children find sort of not being right or a challenge to themselves very, very distressing, don't they? And then you see that in their behaviour.
I think it's when they lock down,
Yeah.
when they've reached that point where, right, the world's gone, they go in a corner and there's no one, not even parents or granddad, is going to move that child.
Yeah. There's quite a good variety there.
At the moment, something totally different. With 2 children that are in pull-ups and make a mess.
Okay. And how old are they?
6, 5 and 6.
So they're in pull-ups later than they would naturally be because of their needs. Okay. Yeah. There's care needs as well. There's
Yeah, I'm with another one. We found out that we wets herself.
Okay, so there's all sorts of different kind of needs there, isn't it? Sort of situations. So you have another.
Couldn't catch the front row's offering. Sorry, it was not your fault, of course.
No, it's with
Sorry.
3 children, 2 that wear pull-ups and mess themselves at every session.
All right.
Well, one doesn't yet. It's that comes to them. And then one wets itself.
So, care needs, medical needs or self-care needs, behaviour needs, emotional needs, all those things going on. And then you've got all the children that you are trying to support and lead and direct and entertain and teach, all those things, aren't you, all at once? It's not uncommon. All of us deal with this, and we are often volunteers, aren't we? We're giving up our time to do this. And, for you to come on training tonight is absolutely wonderful because, I promise you'll get something out of it, hopefully. I say promise and then hopefully, don't I? That's my caveat, really. But I planned it so that hopefully you can take something away. But one of the things about, the reason I've asked this question like this is the behaviour that challenges you. I want us to just think about, how does that behaviour make us feel? Okay. Annoyed. Thank you.
Useless because you feel as though you can't
Useless.
solve this situation.
You feel sad for them as well.
Sad. Yeah.
What's the point?
What's the point? Yeah.
It's a bit out of control or something.
Out of control. Yeah.
Frustrated, especially when it's affecting other children.
Yeah.
And making it less enjoyable for them.
One of the biggest things about any behaviour, because behaviour is just somebody's response to something or their communication, the way they have reacted. And behaviour that challenges is actually the reaction, the challenge is to us and our emotion and our reactions and thoughts. It's us who feel challenged. Often the child is dealing with a different challenge. But for us, we feel challenged for all these kind of reasons and more. And the best thing to do is be honest about that and acknowledge that. As a parent, as a teacher, as a Sunday school leader, even with adults with learning disabilities as well, I've been in that position very, very many, many times. So it's really good. We start with honesty. That's a great place to start. There's these behaviours. We don't know what to do. It makes us feel bad and we feel challenged. But one of the things to think about as well is that we're talking about additional needs children today. And really, have you ever thought about how many additional needs children are out there? I'm going to give you a few. Ignore that. I want to go to the next one. Okay. I want to really thank Mark Arnold from Urban Saints. He does this course, all inclusive. He's a great friend of mine, and he's put together these statistics. And they are that 20% of the 13 million children and young people in the UK have additional needs of some kind. That hasn't changed from the Warnock report in 1978. It's still always been about 20%. So people think there's more additional needs. What we have done is got much, much better at giving labels and conditions and understanding conditions. So it kind of seems more. But also from 1978, Mary Warnock report looked at how we include people with additional needs in mainstream life, particularly in school and education. So there's been, for 40 years now, that inclusion drive into schools. Lots of special schools were closed down and teachers were having to teach a lot more diverse children, and that's happened. I've been teaching for nearly 30 years, and I've seen quite a lot of that development, and I've seen quite a lot of the problems that has caused through underfunding and poor management of that. This is a really stark fact that 90% of families with children that have additional needs are unchurched. That is a huge amount of those families. And we're just talking about the children, we're talking about their parents and their siblings because of the challenges or because people haven't reached them. But this means that they are one of the biggest unreached peoples in the UK. That's a big challenge to us as a church, isn't it? And siblings and parents are also affected by that child's additional needs in that they're often excluded from a wide range of social activities, including church. And it could be because of the demands within the family, exhaustion quite a lot, and if the child with additional needs doesn't feel welcome or included in church, then the rest of the family feels that quite big as well. And 53% of families claim that having a disabled child causes some major relationship difficulties or breakups. And poor communities are twice as likely to include families with children with additional needs. There's a lot of economic pressure on a family with additional needs. Many parents, both usually mothers but fathers as well, end up having to give up work to look after their child and to help their child's needs get met. The statistics within schools, I can't tell you, but I live with it every day, in that we have what we call a special needs code of practice. It's backed up by law, which means that children should get their needs met and have access to an education that meets their needs. But the reality of it is poorly funded, poorly understood, poorly trained, and the fight that parents have to get their children's needs met on a daily basis is huge. So I want to go back. Okay, here's some of my friends. These are made up names, but not made up situations. They're an amalgamation of quite a few of the things. So I have a blog called Included by Grace, which I write about all these kind of issues. And I'm a member of the Additional Needs Alliance, which is a Facebook page you really should join. Great supportive community. Mark Arnold from Urban Saints, that used to be campaigners, started it off, along with Kay Morgan Gurr. Both of them real bright lights in the field of supporting churches with additional needs. And they're great friends of mine. But being part of that community means that I get a lot of private messages. I get emails from people who've read my blogs. I get messages because I'm one of the admins of the Additional Needs Alliance. And these are some of the stories I want to share with you that have happened. So let me tell you about Adam, who has Down syndrome. Now, Adam is really curious, and he loves climbing. One of the things that happens in church is that he goes really close up to people and touches their face. And this has been seen as a big problem in the church with his behaviour, and he has been told that, his parents have been told that they have to make him sit still, and that is the situation. The parents actually ended up leaving that church. I want to tell you about Holly, who is autistic and doesn't have much verbal language, but Holly is a sensory dancer. She loves music and she loves sensory things that stimulate her. So when the light in the sunshine comes through the stained glass window, she is the one in that bright light at the front, dancing away, fully immersed in worship of her God. And Holly's parents were told that she had to be kept under control because she disturbed the worship of other people. Okay. Let me tell you about Sam, who has cerebral palsy. And the Sunday school teachers came to parents one day and said, "I'm really sorry, but we've changed everything and we're taking his group upstairs, so Sam can't come." This has actually happened. Simon has ADHD and dyslexia. He's really curious, he's impulsive, he's adventurous, and he asks really deep questions. And these are often dismissed. You know, I don't want to hear, it's not time to ask about that. But he's really curious, and he's very, very fidgety. He touches things, he touches people, he can't wait for anything. And in Sunday school, he's often told that he's naughty, that he should behave. He often hears the word don't, no, stop. And his parents have been told that unless he can do what he's told, he shouldn't be coming to Sunday school. Right, okay. And Eleanor, who has Tourette's, and with that a lot of anxiety. Eleanor has the typical tics of Tourette's, where she shouts out, and you know, it was a little bit amusing when she was younger. As she's got older, some of those tics are swear words in the middle of a service or in the middle of a Sunday school. And again, parents have been asked to keep her out of Sunday school because she's upsetting the other children with her swearing. And Faye has a learning disability. She's really friendly, she wants to help, she's a loud singer, and she is getting to teenage years now and doesn't really understand anything that the youth group are talking about, because it's quite Bible study based and she can't access that. And they offered her to be able to go in the baby class because that was her level of understanding, which again was very patronising. Faye didn't want to come to church anymore. But have a look, you know, Adam is a curious climber, he loves people. Holly is a sensory dancer. Sam is desperate to join in, he loves jokes. Simon is curious, impulsive, adventurous, and asks deep questions. Eleanor loves worship, is anxious, but loves jokes too. And Faye is friendly, wants to help, and has a lovely, loud voice and sings enthusiastically. Lots of these children get labels these days that seem more complex. And it's just because we've got better at understanding different conditions. Before, in the past, they used to may have just said they've got moderate learning difficulties, or you know, was a bit slow, or lots of different labels that have been. But it's the same kind of people. We've just got better at understanding their needs. So we've given these different labels. I work with children who have more labels after their name than a doctor, more letters, you know, because it's all in acronyms and letters, isn't it? But what's really important is the label does not define the person. And unfortunately, a lot of diagnostic criteria is very, very negative. Let me just show you as we go through. The problem is, and I really don't like showing you this slide, but it has to, we have to be aware. Sorry, that's from last time. Right. Right. Do you know what that is? Because I used it in my last thing when I recorded it. I'm sorry, that's going to mess the recording up. All right, let's go back to this. I don't know how to get it off.
Can we not listen to it?
Well, I'll just, listen to it. Listen to what I have to say. No. What's happening? Technology.
I'll turn the sound down.
No, it's not going back at all. Here we go. Labels. Here you go. These are the words in the autism diagnostic criteria. Just have a look at them. It's terrible, isn't it? I work with autistic children all the time, and I wouldn't say any of those things are true. I would say they are clever, they are intelligent, they are interesting, they are talented, they are worshippers, they love God, they are interested, they are curious, and many, many more things. Faithful, loyal. And so when our children are given a label, this is what comes with it. So when you get them on a Sunday, they've got this baggage with them. Somebody's given them a label, and if they're lucky, they've been told some really positive things about it, but most of the time, very negative things. Anybody of you work with teenagers? Okay, right. I work in secondary schools, and my teenagers that I work with tell me that autism is used as an insult. They're still using words from a long time ago to describe people with disabilities as insults in the playground. It's common. They're coming through that all the week, and they come to you on a Sunday with the impact that that makes on them. Okay. I'm going to tell you some other things as well. Lots of parents say that even in church, they have to go through life with the tut. Okay, the tut. So it comes along with eye raising, eyebrows, strong stares, comments under their breath or directly to. Why can't your child sit still? Why can't you keep them under control? Any child who makes noises, again, comes with tuts and has to be quiet. Any child who wanders. But the worst thing that parents deal with is when a child has a meltdown. And I'm going to explain that a little bit later. But a child in meltdown is in great distress. And again, tuts. Keep your child under control. Why don't you make them stop? Is really, really common in many, many parents' experiences. Families are being told we can't meet your needs. Please don't bring your child until they can behave. You better go elsewhere. And also, there's families who can't go to church because they can't get ready in time. They may have a child who has medication and very complex medical needs, or a child who just needs that time to get ready and can't. Too much sensory information on the way to church, never mind in church itself. The child might start the day off distress, and so the whole family can't come to church. And medical needs, whether it's nappies or something more complex, can take all that time up before they even get there. And when they've had that 24/7 or the rest of the week, then Sunday is just another day with all the same things over and over again. The other things that parents have to deal with is people praying for healing, when actually that is quite offensive to them as a family, and people assuming that that's what they want. Also, there are parents and people with different additional needs being assumed that they are demon-possessed. These are the stories I hear. Also, foster parents. I'm going to include children with in care with this. Foster parents and adoptive parents are often asked for confidential information that they can't give. The children are asked, which puts a lot of pressure on everybody. And also looked after children can be made to feel very bad when there is a definite design, God's design for families, when they don't fit that. And again, none of this is probably done on purpose by anybody. We are not trying on purpose to shut people out of church, but just odd comments, tuts, looks make a big impact on people who are already under great, great stress. Life with a child with additional needs is very hard. It's 24/7 care for many, many families. This fighting that they have to go through for school support is enormous and very, very disheartening. They're blamed for a lot of things. There's a lot of judgment from other parents and people out in the community. There are long, long waiting lists for diagnosis. And lots of children get very little sleep. They don't sleep. And that, again, has a toll on the whole family. There are masses of medical and psychology appointments, and the worry about their child's vulnerability and what's going to happen to them when they grow up. What's going to happen? Every parent of a child with additional needs says, who's going to look after them when I go? And that is the reality. Okay. So let's move.
The important thing is that we're all part of the body of Jesus. Church, that body that he
I'm so sorry. Do you know, I thought I was saving time by cutting and pasting some of my things. Thank you, Sarah. Right, let's start again. You can cut that bit out. Let's go on to belonging. So this talk is called Belonging, and it's about reading, reflecting and responding to behaviour. So I wanted to give you that background first about where a lot of our children are coming from. The more we know about their life, the more helpful that we can be. But belonging, we all part of the body of Christ, aren't we? And what's really important is first to belong, but also to be able to grow and to thrive within that body of Christ. And 1 Corinthians 12 is the great Bible verse to look at, isn't it? That God has placed in each part of the body just as he wanted it to be. If all the parts were the same, how could there be a body? As it is, there are many parts, but there is only one body, and he has given more honour to the parts that didn't have any. Out in society, children and families with additional needs do not have much honour. They are told that they are a burden on society. And so in the church, we want to make that our place a sanctuary for them. We want them to help them feel that they belong and that they are part of God's kingdom. But we've still got the realities as well of the daily interactions with them and dealing with the things that we find difficult. God knows that. But the first thing is helping them to belong. But to be able to grow and thrive too, one of the real hard things is when we have low expectations, not only of the children with additional needs themselves, like Faye, who was asked to go in the baby class when she was a teenager, but that makes us have low expectations of the Holy Spirit and what he can do in people's lives. The other story that I love from the Bible is Mephibosheth. There you go. You have to practice that one. In 2 Samuel 9, it says, "And Mephibosheth, grandson of your master, will always eat at my table." He was the boy who was crippled by being dropped when he was young. He was Saul's grandson, the only living relative. And David wanted to honour Saul and Jonathan's memory. So he searched for him and he brought him into the palace and renewed his status and gave him a place at the king's table. And that's what we're doing for these children. You know, they're rejected by society, they are bullied, they are given very low expectations. In church, we are bringing them to the table. And in the same way, I love the parable of the banquet for that as well. So there's lots and lots of examples in the Bible of, you know, God turning things upside down and bringing people to the table who maybe we might not think would be invited. So let's think about reading behaviour. We'll go into some technical things now. And this is something that I would teach teachers and children's workers as a way of actually, okay, when we've got one of these behaviours that are challenges, or a few of them, what can we do? I want to give you something practical. But the first thing is to read that behaviour, to work out from the child's point of view what is going on. And I think that's probably some of our frustration when we're stuck with a behaviour, that we don't get why the child is doing it. And there could be a load of things behind what's happening in front of you. And you actually might be getting that because you're the safe person. You know, a lot of children have, I sometimes bring it with me, but I haven't today, a Coke bottle effect, where things all week are sort of shaking them up, but they manage to keep the lid on. And then when they're in the safe place, off the lid comes. Parents constantly have this after school, and teachers will say, well, they seemed fine all day at school, but actually what they've been doing is keeping that lid on and it comes off at home. And parents then are coping with that massive amount of emotion and frustration and anxiety that the child's been holding in all day. And one of the things when I'm working with schools is we work on reducing that anxiety and stress throughout the day so that that doesn't happen when they go home. But church, if it is a safe place for them, you might be getting a little bit of that as well, because it's safe to let go. They feel that they're not rejected and you're getting that for them, which is a fantastic place to be, believe it or not, even though you're faced with whatever. So I want to introduce you this iceberg. Any kind of behaviour that's consistently giving you a challenge, this is a really good way to start. And hopefully I'm going to give you a little bit of chance to try this out. One of the things is that we see the visible behaviour, but like any iceberg, it's just the tip. So what we're seeing, what we're dealing with, we are reading what we see, and often we are reacting to that. And when we just react to a behaviour, we often get into a cycle where we can't get out of, because it's not changing what the child's doing, it keeps happening. We don't know how to react differently, so we end up in this cycle where everybody's getting more frustrated and more upset, and we don't know how to get out of it. So my advice is to just pause, take a step back, and work to see if you can find out what are the reasons behind that behaviour. As soon as you think a child is doing something on purpose, ask yourself what that purpose is. I must admit, it is one of my pet hate phrases. He's doing it on purpose. Because I'm always saying, well, okay, let's find out what the purpose is. Children are children. They are dealing with a lot of stress in our lives at the moment. I mean, school, I don't know how long it is since you went to school, but the pressure upon them, and especially if they've got learning needs at the moment, is enormous. And they've got that all week. They come to church, and sometimes Sunday school is like school, so that brings them more pressure as well. Hopefully it isn't. Hopefully it's a lot more fun than that, a lot more fluid, a lot more encompassing into everybody's needs. But, whatever it is, the child has this behaviour. It might be a habit. It might be something they've just got into the habit of doing because they don't know how to do anything else in that situation. We talked about non-compliance. And again, it's asking, well, why is that child not wanting to do what it is I'm asking them? As soon as we say a child is being naughty, what we've done is saying, right, that's all that child's fault. It's not our fault. We've done the right thing. We've put the rules in place, so it's their fault that they can't follow that. I kind of want to turn that away because we can do something about it. It's not about blame. It's not about fault. It's finding the why. Now, again, you don't have to be an expert on anything to think about why. But when we're looking underneath the iceberg, one of the first questions to ask is, what might be stressing that child? Now, to find that out, you're going to have to spend a bit of time with that child. You may need to speak, and hopefully with parents as well, to discuss what's going on in their life. When I was at church as a young child, I was the only child in my family who went to church. I was taken by an old lady she was like Pied Piper. She used to collect children and take them to church. But, I spent many years in my church being very, very withdrawn, which is another behaviour. And nobody ever found out that I was a carer, a young carer. Nobody asked me. They just said, oh, yes, Lynn, she's quiet, she's shy. And it's just taking that time to find out what's going on in the background of the child, what it's things like for them. And that does take a bit of investment in time, doesn't it? But stress is a big thing in life. We talk about it a lot on social media. Excuse me. But there is a lot of stress, and we try and find out where that might be coming from. There always has been. That's life, isn't it? Some people cope with it better than others. But gaps in skills as well. One of the things is that children with additional needs often have learning difficulties. So there might be things that they've not been able to learn, and you're asking them to do that right now. And it could be that you've asked them to write something and they hate writing, they're dyslexic. It could be a simple thing like that. Or it could be that actually they've never really learned how to wait for something because that's not part of their either condition or their experience. And so waiting for something makes them really anxious. They don't know how. Often that's related to not being able to understand the concept of time. And lots of children I work with have a real struggle with the concept of time. So you ask them to wait, and anxiety comes because they don't know how long that wait is. They don't know when it's going to end or what they're going to get from it. So there's lots of things we can do to help children if we understand where they're coming from. Behaviour drivers, things that the child is kind of have a need for at that moment. That need might be to touch something. It might be to fidget. It might be to move, which is a sensory need in a way. It may be that that child has a need to escape and avoid something. And again, that is a big driver because when these drivers come, they often come with adrenaline, which is a big energy in your body to make you do something. And it also can take away your ability to think more logically because it's an emotional driver. So they may be trying to escape and avoid something. They may be trying to fulfill a sensory need. They may want something and not understand that differ of needs. So they want it now. It might be what somebody else has. So you'll say, well, that child can't share. Yeah? But they might have no understanding of what belonging means or taking turns and beyond that, the waiting again. And also the communication, that's a big driver. I want to communicate, I want to tell people things. But if a child has a developmental language delay, then they're not, or they have a social communication difficulty, then they're not going to have words. They're going to use behaviour to communicate. I know lots of children who want to play and enjoy and get involved with other kids, and they'll do it by hitting them. Because actually it's a really good way to get somebody's attention. It's kind of worse. Or somebody's in their way, they'll hit them to get them out of the way because they haven't the ability to find the words at that time to be able to communicate. So a lot of behaviour comes through poor communication. And actually some of the most talkative children actually have poor social communication. And you'll notice those who talk about themselves or their own interests all the time, and then when you put them in a situation that they can't recognise or it's unfamiliar for them. Another big thing about driving behaviour is the fear of unpredictability. And again, in many additional needs, that is a feature, and it causes a lot of anxiety. So things not being predictable, you changing something, can cause that anxiety, which can lead to behaviour. Sensory challenges are common in a lot of additional needs as well, such as Down syndrome, autism, ADHD, and other conditions as well. That is the difference, that when somebody is in an environment, the sensory information that's going through their senses is difficult for the brain to organise maybe, or filter out what it doesn't need. Very often children are oversensitive, and so what happens is that they are getting too much information to the brain. The brain is working really hard to try and process it all, filter out what it needs to attend to, what it doesn't, but actually it's really alarming for the child. So you often get children who might do this, so the noise. And churches, especially sort of very echoey rooms, some love it, some hate it, and they can find it really, they're hiding under chairs, under tables, because it's too much. Touch, being near people. Some children don't like people touching them. That light touch is really, really painful for them. So obviously there's noise, touch, smell, taste, all those things that can be oversensitive. There's also our body awareness and our balance, and what we call, there's big words for these, proprioception and interoception, but there's a sense of your internal organs as well. We're very sensitive to wanting to go to the toilet or being hungry. There's lots of things that's oversensitivity, but on the same side that children can be undersensitive in their senses as well. So if they're oversensitive, they might be avoiding things. If they're undersensitive, they're likely to be seeking out or not responsive to something. So the climbers, the ones who are under the tables and on top of things and too near people and getting in people's way and falling over, are often sensory seekers. They're not getting enough sensory information to their brain. The brain just wants to keep that person safe, and trying to process all that sensory information or not have enough means that the brain will do all it can to help that person find safety somewhere. So maybe they can't sit still. They lie on the floor, they loll, because actually there's more sensory feedback if you put your body on the floor than there is sitting on your bottom. All those kind of things that happen. Very, very, we talk about children with ADHD being very fidgety. They often have very poor, what we call body awareness. And it's the difference between doing it on purpose or can't help it. And that's really, when we're talking about children with additional needs particularly, a lot of it is that they can't help what they can't do. And we can do a lot to help them with that if we understand. Sometimes it's been a communication breakdown. Somebody said something and it isn't happening, or they misunderstood something. Quite often children will misinterpret things. Very often, for example, autistic children might take things very literally. And so when you don't do exactly what you said, then it's very confusing and overwhelming for them. Incidentally, I was talking to an Oxford University student who is autistic, reading English. So, get rid of all your stereotypes about autism. However, one of the things that she said we were talking about church, she's a Christian, she was saying, I really can't get some of the ambiguous language that you talk about in church, like set my heart on fire. So that just sounds terrifying to me. And I don't just get it. But however, she has a very deep and very sure faith. She says, I'm so sure that God loves me. And that's where my faith comes. All this other stuff kind of really confuses me. I said, actually, sometimes it frightens me as well. So we have to be really careful, don't we, about our language. Communication breakdown can cause a lot of behaviour, believe it or not. So if we turn that upside down, what might be happening to the child? They have got verbal demands that their brain is trying to process. They have sensory demands, social demands, especially if they find social situations difficult. They might actually want to be more sociable than actually read the thing that you're asking them to do. But skill demands, it might be a simple thing like cutting out, and if they've got dyspraxia and it affects their fine motor skills, that is really difficult for them. So again, you might get that in terms of behaviour rather than saying, I can't do this. Time pressures, stopping doing something that they're enjoying, that's a big thing. Do you like being told to stop something you're enjoying? The transition from one thing to another. Confusion, illness, pain. Some children can't articulate that they're in pain or they feel ill, and so again, their behaviour shows it. And also lots of undiagnosed things. There are many families going through the process of trying to find out what condition the child has, why they are the way they are, and it's a very long process. Typically autistic children are on a waiting list for at least 2 years in most areas in Lancashire at the moment, but it can take longer than that. And particularly, I have a special interest in girls on the autistic spectrum, and many of them are missed. And what happens is because their needs aren't met, by the time they get to your youth groups, teenage years, it comes out as very big mental health issues because they haven't been recognised early on. They often seem good as well. And it's the things that come out later as they get more and more demands on them. Now, this sounds a big thing, doesn't it? And it's like, well, how can we cope with all this? I'm not asking you to. I'm asking you to just take a step back from the behaviour that you're seeing with the children and take this to Jesus, pray for them, ask him to give you wisdom, talk to the child, talk to the family, and see what you can learn about the difficulties and the stresses that they're having, because that's our starting point in understanding. And I think any child who feels that somebody understands them you've got their love straight away. Because the biggest thing that people with differences and difficulties and additional needs say all the time is, I just want people to understand me. That can change a massive amount of behaviour. Okay, just to kind of give you an idea of what might be happening when you've got a child who's in distress. Now, I just want to talk about the words tantrum and meltdown. Okay, tantrums, I'm being very, very general here, are generally when somebody really wants something, they can't have it, they're getting a real distress about it, so maybe kicking and screaming or sulking, all those kind of things. But generally a tantrum can be, if they get what they want or they're able, you can talk them round, that can be calmed down. And that is very, very general. Tantrums can become meltdowns. Meltdowns often happen, though, as a separate thing. They're not about getting something. They're often about distress and escape, because a person is in a situation where their brain can't process anymore. The nearest thing I can explain a meltdown for is like a computer crash. Have you ever had that happen? And you can press all the buttons, nothing happens. Your processing and your computer has stopped. That's kind of what autistic people and other people have had meltdowns explain a meltdown like, that they've stopped being able to process anything. So any behaviour you see is distress. It's adrenaline and it's a fight, flight or freeze, because the other thing of meltdown can be shut down, where again the person seems like they may be having an epileptic absence or they just seem to have completely shut down. So, and actually, studies are showing now that shutdown is more common than meltdown. It's just we notice meltdowns because they have a massive impact, don't they, on lots of people, and the safety of the child is at the heart of that. What often happens is that, you know, this line here is looking at the emotional state of somebody in terms of their behaviour. But looking at the first line, you know, that's calm. Oh, it'd be nice if we had a calm children, wouldn't it? Well, that'd be great for the whole session. But some that kind of trigger often happens, and the child in the brain, the amygdala rushes in adrenaline through their body because they feel distressed or scared or heightened in some way, and that adrenaline goes through their body, and it's often at the top there that we get the behaviour that we see. Now, you might have had lots of low level kind of behaviours as well, but often adrenaline is the child's brain saying, I don't feel safe. And then as that adrenaline goes out of the body, you can have a dip of depression. So some children get very weepy, some get withdrawn, some just seem like they're sulking afterwards. I know, because I've worked with children in pupil referral units who have had, by the time they get there, they might have had on average 3 or 4 exclusions from school and through their behaviour. And nobody's really addressed it at that time. There's lots of complexities with that. But we often get some children who, there it is, look, who live life on that level. Their whole life and they're on heightened state of adrenaline all the time. So actually, children often don't understand what calm is. We're telling them to calm down, they've no experience of it. That is really common as well. So what we're kind of trying to think about, if we just react to behaviour, then often we either reinforce that behaviour or we cause increased distress to the child. What our approach, and looking at the iceberg as part of this, is about what can we teach the child to enable. Sorry, it's getting ahead of itself. What can we teach the child to enable them to feel better, to have that adrenaline under control, and so have a strategy that when the challenge comes along, we can remind them of it, and hopefully instead of that adrenaline rush, we get this lovely green line, a way to be calm. Now, on a Sunday, for half an hour, 45 minutes, you can't do all this. You're not going to fix it all. I don't have magic wands, sorry, but you can contribute to it. And that's why working with parents and families and the rest of the team that you work with is really, really important. And one of the things I'm going to really think about is, putting together maybe a plan of strategies for that child that everybody can use so that you can all be consistent, but also have a way of sharing that and reporting together. So most of our effort should be not on telling the child off or telling them what they should be doing, but actually on preempting that, teaching them something to do. If they can't follow instructions, for example, finding a way to give them an instruction that they can follow. And that, again, you might not have any ideas, but there's help available. And part of the training is this. I can show you other leaflets and training. You can email me. I'll help. We can help. There's things available that can help. Sarah can help. You're not on your own. So the first thing to do is really think about our own arousal level. We talked at the earlier, as we started, that our own arousal level, how it makes us feel. Just stop and they think, do you know that's making me annoyed? That's okay. Okay, so is there anything I can do with my annoyance first so that I can talk to the child without it? That's kind of our first line of defence. It takes some training, but it is really, really effective. So as soon as you feel your adrenaline levels coming up and causing you annoyance, anger, frustration, upset, despair, because that can happen, can't it? Just check yourself. A pause can make a big, big difference. How am I feeling? Try and breathe it out if you can. And bring your voice right down to a calm voice. The worst thing we can do is get into what I call verbal combat with children, because we really have lost it at that point. I'll put my hand up, done it with my own kids at home many, many times. They've managed to survive to adulthood. However, you just know that you've lost it sometimes and you've got into that cycle. One thing you can do is plan. Yeah, that's okay. We're honest. We do it. We're human, aren't we? Yeah. Really, Jesus lost it once. He was probably a lot more controlled than we were, and he wasn't doing it with children. But when he was in the temple, It's sometimes actually being angry and having that adrenaline and reacting in the way is justified. But when we're working with children, obviously, how am I feeling? How can I bring myself down? Believe it or not, that couple of seconds of pausing can really then change what you do next. Okay, they haven't done what I've asked them to. I'm starting to feel annoyed about it. Can I tell them in a different way? Can I give them something else to do? Can I show them what they should do? Can I sit alongside them? So those are the sort of things that enables us to do. We now need to plan our reactions. So a bit of preparation can be really helpful. And again, get help. Agree as a team how you're going to do that. So, this is what we're going to do when this child does that. They're running out of the room. So, some children do need buddies, and I will mention those again. So let's sit so that I'm near the door and they're all facing me. Let's change the way we do things. Let's give them a special place where they can run to that they feel safe instead. It's planning your reactions, that what might come up. And you'll have gone through these behaviours time and time again, so you'll know what the child's doing. And if you're stuck in those behaviours, we need a different way. So plan your reactions, even if it's breathe first. And be proactive. Come alongside the child and say, I know you're having a bit of a struggle with this. Let's see if we can work together on making that better. Making it a better experience for you. And, we know it impacts on other people, but we're concerned about you. What can we do to help you get through that as a problem or a difficulty, make it better for you? And they might be a bit resistant to that at first because they're used to being told off. So it does take that coming alongside. Let's see if we can make successful something, even if it's a tiny thing. Praise them, notice when they do that tiny thing. And then they see success and they trust you that you are going to do that for them. Enable communication. Lots of our children with additional needs really struggle with communication. And like I'm doing with you tonight, we talk a lot. And if you can't process communication, then it's really, really difficult to keep up. And it can be overwhelming to your brain. So you've listened really, really well so far. I'm going to give you a little activity to do now to think about this. Turn to somebody next to you and ask them a really simple question. It could be, what's your name? What's your favourite colour? But before you answer, I would like you to count 10 slowly in your brain and then answer. Okay? Do it to each other. Have a go. Okay, so how does that make you feel? How do you find that? Weird. Anything else?
It's a lot of eye contact.
Yeah, is it hard to know where to look? Yeah. So it's quite pressure on your eye contact. Did you forget what the question was?
She just asked me such a strange question.
So counting and thinking of the answer, it's two things your brain's trying to do, isn't it? But what's really, really important in a lot of our children with additional needs is that they take longer to process verbal language than a typical child will. So demanding immediate answers for them, even in a group, can be really, really hard. And some children will give you a stupid answer. One of my children, if you put him under that I work with, if you put him under pressure, he just shouts, "Chickens!" And that's his answer to everything, because I'm putting him under pressure. And, I've learned very quickly not to do that to him because it's not fair. So, and again, children are demanded that they answer something very quickly all the time. That was just 10 seconds. I'm going to pick on Dave right now, so come here, Dave. Is that all right? It's just because I know your name. I don't know anybody else's name. Well, I do, but I forgot. I'm going to ask you a simple question. I'd like you to count to 10 slowly before you answer me. And if I interrupt you, you've got to start from 1 again.
Okay.
Okay, Dave, what colour's your car? Dave, what colour's your car? Didn't you hear me? Well, it's a simple question. They're all looking at you. They're all waiting. Have you forgotten what I asked? Have you lost the will to live yet? You can stop.
Yeah.
How far did you get? Numbers?
About 3.
Okay, all right. Sit down. How did you feel about that?
It was kind of, okay, when are you going to allow me to set out the
Yeah.
answer?
Did it feel stress?
Not too much, because I knew you were in a...
Yeah, it was an exercise.
Exercise, but...
What do you think children feel like when we do that? Yeah.
I actually forgot the question.
Yeah, it's easy to do, isn't it? So but the other thing that we're doing is giving them a communication overload. So they're trying to process, if you think about it like a bottle, they're processing that first question and then we're chucking loads and loads more into the bottle top so they get a bottleneck, a funnel neck of information, and it just overwhelms. So communication is really important. One of the great things to do is ask parents how best to communicate with a child. Ask how they do it at school and get some tips. One of the things that is really, really helpful is using pictures. So lots of children with additional needs might use little pictures like this with instructions on. And you can get hold of these. School might make you one. But basically, with instructions. So if a child can't remember what you've asked them to do and they seem non-compliant, showing a picture to all the children, actually, is that everybody, this is what we're going to do next because we're going back into church. And they can check. One of the wonderful things that I like to teach children is to check for themselves what the instruction is if we've made it clear for them. So they're not having to remember verbally. So little things like that can be really helpful. You can also remind them, okay, everybody, this is the time we're going to do listening. But also, think about how long you're asking them to do something for, especially for those children who do find it hard to concentrate. So you might have to break your session into much smaller chunks. So sitting there for 15 minutes listening to a story might be completely impossible for some children, but they might be able to do it if you give them something to fiddle with or something to hold. You've got some pictures of the sequence of the story and they get to hold them. Being in part of it can help, doing drama can help, or just shutting it down into smaller steps for them, for everybody. And none of this will damage any other children. Making things accessible means everybody can, but also our kids who don't need this learn a lot about how you deal with people who are different and children who can't do stuff. They should see that kindness, that accommodation. They learn skills that they can take back and use in their own lives and with their own friends to build friendships with all kinds of children as well. I brought my own children up like this, and I'm just so proud that for them, having a difference, a disability, additional need is just like part of the group of the people that they know. It's just everyday life. And that's really important in church for all our children to see how everybody is part of God's kingdom. Strong key relationships, not only with the adults, but with children as well, isn't it? So it is key adults. And if you've got like a rota of 4 people over a month in your Sunday group or your youth group, then, that child needs to know who's on each week, for example. So send them a list. If there's a change, let them know before they go so that they're not completely upset by the fact that there's been a change. Change can be really a trigger point for lots of our children. And they're coming in and they're in a bad mood because you've changed something and haven't told them. That can be really important. And all of this is about reducing the stress. This is not about giving in to children at all. As soon as you think you're giving in to a child, what you've done is established a power relationship with them. I'm sorry, I know you said earlier that the power and the authority of the adult and the child, but actually what you're doing is building a relationship of communication and the kind of relationship that we should have with Jesus, that we are allowed to have with Jesus. Because he is the God of the universe with all power and authority. And he has kind of raised us up to have this equal friendship type relationship with him. Now, if we can do that with children, it's going to take some work, but it can be an amazing thing that we are showing them how Jesus works. That he's not a God who's up in heaven telling them off for every bit of sin that they do, but actually he's raised us up to have a relationship with him. So if a child isn't doing something we ask them, or they're doing something that we find difficult, let's see if we can just reduce their stress and build a relationship, because that's really, to me, what all being at church is about, isn't it? It's about sharing that. We don't have to be like the world outside. We can turn that upside down because that's what Jesus does. Okay, so the next bit is reflecting on behaviour. And, I've probably done a lot of this already, but the person I often go to for reflecting on anything is Jesus. He's my hero, my love, the person I fell in love with 30 years ago, who came to save me and accepted me as I am. I had a very, very difficult time in my teenage years, did a lot of things I should not have done. My behaviour was not good. And I just thought I was bad, nobody will ever accept me. And then I found Jesus. Somebody explained the gospel to me about forgiveness and grace, and I've just lived in that joy every day ever since. So Jesus is the person to go for. And as I was praying about this is what he brought to my mind, and you'll know it. Okay, let's go. I'll read it to you. You all know this. It's really familiar. Then people brought little children to Jesus for him to place his hands on them and pray for them. But the disciples rebuked them. Jesus said, "Let the little children come to me and do not hinder them, for the kingdom of heaven belongs to such as these." When he had placed his hands on them, he went on from there. Jesus welcomed children of all kinds. There was nobody there who had to stand away or not allowed because they were pushing to the front or anything like that. I can only imagine what was going on at the time. But it really speaks to me that we've got to be really careful that we're not like the disciples and say, oh, you can't do this, you can't do that. Because the most important thing of what we're doing in church is bringing those children to Jesus. And that is going to be a challenge at times. Let's not, God knows. He knows he's put us in that position and he's going to bring those children to us, and our job is to lead them to him. So he's also promised to give us everything we need. But one thing that I was quite interested in... And this, whoever welcomes one such child in my name welcomes me. If anyone causes one of these little ones, those who believe in me, to stumble, it would be better for them to have a large millstone hung around their neck and to be drowned in the depths of the sea. Woe to the world because of these things that cause people to stumble. Such things must come, but woe to that person for whom through they come. That's a bit of a sobering thought, isn't it? And one thing that could make somebody stumble is a tut. That means that I can only, with my heart, share the stories of the families who are Christians, who love Jesus, who can't get to church because of their children's additional needs. And I'm doing that because, if you're not being aware of it, it's real life stories, and something has made them stumble. And, God is, and Jesus is amazing at forgiving us. But it's really important to know that we can be the agents of that, or people in our congregations can be, and we don't even realise that we've done that. I want to think about Jesus' approach to people. And one of the things that strikes me as I read through, somewhere like Mark, is the weirdness of the people who came to Jesus. And the different needs that they have, and the behaviours that they had. One of the people I think of the awkward kind of adults that Jesus had to deal with is Nicodemus. And it's amazing. A lot of autistic people kind of recognise themselves a little bit in Nicodemus. He was very literal. And, his thing about, rebirth and being born again, he was very confused about. He even came to Jesus in the dark because he didn't want to be seen or for whatever reason. But Jesus treated him with fairness and kindness, didn't he? And he treated him with compassion. And I've got a picture of him here. There you go. I found that online. This thing about being born again, he couldn't quite grasp it. So Jesus was really compassionate. But also, another person that I think was quite awkward was Zacchaeus. And he's, at the time, a real hated person in the society. And he was short. That seems to come up quite a lot, doesn't it? Which, for some people, can be a disability, especially when you're shopping in Tesco's or something, isn't it? You can't reach. But one of the things I think that Jesus always did was give them understanding, compassion, kindness, and he redirected them in his strength. You think about Zacchaeus particularly, he didn't tell him off. He showed him love and compassion. He went to see who his friends were. He found out what his interests were. He spent time with him. And then Zacchaeus was the one who decided to change from that. And I just think Jesus' approach is really, really what we should reflect on. And sometimes it is our responses that is putting people off. And you think, oh, well, but they're doing this, that and the other. They're still children, and we are the adults, and God has promised to give us everything we need to do the work of his hands. So, we don't have to know it all, but we need to go to him for that. So that's a little bit of reflection in all that. But the responding, what I like to do is give people really practical things to do. So when we're responding to behaviour, I want to think about conflict, because we do get in conflict with children. A few of you have given me very good examples, where the child is maybe shouting at you and you don't know what to do, or they're really causing a lot of disruption, they're threatening something or somebody, they're maybe even threatening to run away or whatever, and there's that danger really. So if we're in a position where we're having a conflict or challenge, my first bit of advice is to acknowledge the emotional state, not just of yourself, but of the child as well. So as we take that pause and say, how am I feeling about this? And try and breathe that out and then bring our voice right down to show a calm emotional state. Heart might be going like this, but we can still show it on the outside. It's also acknowledge the emotional state of the child. I can see that you are really frustrated. I can see that you are upset about that. I think I would be if somebody had hit me or something like that. So I acknowledge the situation and how they're feeling. I think one of the big things that we can do is dismiss a child. Oh, why are you getting so upset about that? Or don't be worried about that. But if we acknowledge we build emotionally competent adults by acknowledging theirs. And as for children, their emotions are big a lot of the time. Whether it's connected to adrenaline or other things that are going on, there's often a very physical feeling that comes with emotion. Yourself, if you feel nervous, it's a physical feeling. And for children, sometimes their whole body is kind of alerted physically by an emotion and a situation. And they can't control that. It's often too big for them. So if we acknowledge them and say, we can see that you are in this distress or in this state, we are actually already getting ourselves out of conflict straight away. We're not going down that road. The second thing is to explain boundaries. There's nothing wrong with having rules and boundaries at all. Now, hopefully, we've done a bit of work on them before. I think the two best rules that we can have is be safe and be kind. Everything else kind of comes in for that. Sitting still, is that really necessary all the time? Especially if a child can't do it. But being safe while you're in that space is a different thing. There's different ways to be still or to listen. There's different ways you can do that. You might be sitting on something else, or it might be standing up or fiddling with something, making a Lego model in the corner while we're telling the story. Lots of adaptations that we can make, but we're still, the be safe and be kind is kind of a really good rule. And if you think about, Jesus gave us two rules, didn't he? To love God and to love others. So it kind of fits in with that as well, doesn't it? But he just wants us to be safe, and if a child's hitting another child, it's really important to say, I really don't want you to do that because that is going to hurt somebody. Let's see if we can find a different way to deal with this. Have you ever had children actually fighting each other and having to separate them? Oh yeah, I've done that. And again, you have to, I can see you're both really, really cross about something, but it's not safe to hit each other. We're going to deal with this a different way. But often it's first you need calm down time. You can't deal with logical thinking when a child's up here. You can't do it when an adult's up here, actually. That's why I say about bringing your own emotional state down first. So explain the boundaries and the reasons. Try and get them into a safe place if you can. Let them calm down. If they're refusing to move, then move everybody else to keep them safe. If you need to leave a child in a room and take everybody else back to church a bit early or into another room, actually sometimes that is because you're taking away an audience as well, because that can be a bit of an issue, can't it, with some children. Then you're keeping everybody safe, you're keeping things kind. And it's important as well, the children who are watching, that they see you acting in that kind way, and that they also are encouraged if they can help. Because sometimes another child can get through to that child and you can't, because they've kind of watched and learned and built that relationship. And the third thing to do is offer a way out or a next step. Sometimes you can't do that until they have calmed down, till some of that energy has gone out of their mind and they've been able to refocus a little bit or calm down. But you have to judge in a way. And sometimes we panic a bit because it's the end of the session and they need to get back to their mum and dad and we're a bit But just sometimes a little bit of a pause, a time just to be silent. Silence is a big, good behaviour strategy, actually. Now, you're not overwhelming people with things, but offering a way out or a next step. And if they refuse, then stop again. And sometimes choices for some children help. You know, sometimes you can get round the demand by giving them a choice within it. So we're going to go and walk back to main church to find your mum and dad. Do you want to wear your coat or not? Or do you want to put your shoes back on or not? Sometimes it's that sort of thing. And then they've had some choice. So you're telling them what it is you want to do, but you've given them some choice, which has distracted them from actually demanding something I don't really want to do, but you've given me some choice within that. That's quite a good strategy, really, in kind of helping them, you know, I don't like the word comply, but do something that is necessary or helpful for them as well. So kind of, if you can keep those things, if you're going to go back to work with your other workers as well, this is kind of a little bit of a strategy that everybody can put in place. And it kind of takes away the fear of how do we react when a child isn't doing and we don't know what to do. So you can go through this system, and I promise you it isn't a magic wand. It's not always going to work, but it'll give you a lot more time to feel in control, to feel calm, feel that you've done something. And if necessary, you know, somebody else has taken all the children back, you're there keeping that child safe. But hopefully, you know, somebody can say, please ask parents to come. We're keeping them safe, we're keeping them calm, but please can you come and help them make the next move? And I tell you, from all the parents that I know, you know, they will be so much better hearing that than, your child's in meltdown, come and sort it out. Yeah? And it's that kind of thing. And if you need to review it, if you need to go over what's happened and see which ways you might be able to change things so it doesn't happen again, then, you know, that's, again, working with parents. So you're planning for that future support. What can we do differently? Is your child struggling with what we're doing? Can we make it easier for them? And I promise you, changes like this don't harm other children. People are a little bit afraid of that. And sometimes you'll find half a dozen of the children are really liked to that thing as well. One of the strategies that we like to use sometimes is a visual timetable, because this provides a little bit of predictability for a child. And this is one I made for a Sunday school. And it was just that, you know, we're going to start with a prayer, we're going to have an activity and a story, a game, and then we finished, we're going back to the hall where parents are. And that hall could be at the front because that's where we're going. But finished is really, really important. The other thing about visual timetable and the bits falling off the bottom is to have an envelope or something where you take off each bit that you've done. What that really helps is if you look at that, you know exactly where you're up to straight away. You're not having to search and scan for it. But also you can see that time is going down and there's only a couple more things and I'm going to finish. And that's quite encouraging for a child to say, oh, there's only one more thing. I can keep going for that before we go back. So finishing the visuals and things like that. These pictures, I have a program called Widget that I use, and we used it a lot when I was at St Andrews with the adult. We use this all the time in helping us access the Bible. We use these pictures for sequencing a Bible story for people who couldn't read then could really access the Bible with us, and they were really helpful. But you can find loads of pictures online. There's clip art. Kids can draw them. You know, some kids are really good at drawing. There's loads of way of accessing that. And, you know, now we've got Google these days. Lots of things available. But those visual things like that can help with that communication. So you're planning for some future support. You're taking away some of the stresses. And you've got, hopefully, a way of dealing with any conflict that you find yourself in. Okay. I'm going to come back to that in a minute. So part of that planning for future support, I'm going to give you another few ideas. Obviously, we need to find out as much as we can about the child. So make an appointment to talk with the family. See if they would like you to go and visit them at home. and just see, talked about their family, how they get on, what challenges they have, but also really work to find out what the child likes and enjoys and what gives them joy and happiness, because that is a really good way. Now, here's a challenge. What if you get a child who only likes Fortnite? You know what Fortnite is? An Xbox game? That's a shooty game. Okay, I've come across this quite a lot. And I've had to sit there and think, well, I really hate shooter games. And my initial reaction would be, you shouldn't be watching that, that's an 18 game. But as soon as you come back with a negative retort, you've lost the child. So you have to learn to just be a bit patient and say, tell me about it. What happens? What bits do you like about it? What do you get out of it? And so you can draw things out. Now, it's no good telling the child it's really bad killing and shooting people, because they read the Old Testament, right? And there's lots of examples of wars and battles. So you kind of have to just think, right, God, how do I deal with this? But be where they are. That's really, really important. Start from where they are. They won't always trust you if everything you say is, you've got to come where I am. You've got to start where they are and build up. I don't know a great lot about Fortnite. I am learning. I know a lot more about Pokemon and things like this, but getting into what the children are interested in really helps. One of the great joys has been learning children who like Lego, and then finding that there's loads of Bible things about Lego as well. I even did a workshop at the One Way UK festival a couple of years ago on using Lego to teach the Bible. It's great. Who likes Lego? I love it. So when I find children who like Lego, like, yes, let's explore the Bible together. So many ways you can use practical things to teach the Bible. I'd just say there's loads of different Bibles out there. There is the Lego Bible, there's a Minecraft Bible. Does anybody know about Minecraft? There's loads of things to learn. There is an action Bible, there's a manga Bible. Get things that interest the children and use that to engage them in the stories and the wonderful richness of what's in the Bible. It's a way in, isn't it? One of the Bibles I really want to show you, and I brought one with me, is I've got two versions, paperback and hardback. This is the accessible Bible that was put together by Biblica in conjunction with Torch Trust for the Blind, Urban Saints and Livability, and it's aimed for people who not just need a large print Bible, obviously from the Torch Trust point of view, but it's really been thinking about the children and adults who have dyslexia, who have learning difficulties and can read a little bit. One of the things about the Bible, I don't know if you've noticed, it's got very long sentences. I'm so tuned into this now. When I hear anything, I'm thinking, when's this sentence going to finish? Because what this does beautifully is shorten sentences. That's so good for any children with hearing difficulties, developmental language delay, dyslexia. It enables them to process because those full stops are a pause. So, and the other thing that they've done is they've used non-glare paper. It took them quite a while to source that, apparently about 4 months. And they've put the numbers down the side. So it's a lot easier to find. There's a lovely summary of every chapter at the beginning, which is, again, written in very accessible language. This is a beautiful Bible. It's my usual Bible now. It's only at the moment in the New Testament. It's based on the NIRV, which you can get the Old Testament of it on Bible Gateway. But these have transformed so many children and adults. And Sarah, you use it, don't you, in schools as well? So if you want to look at them, I have got a few for sale because I always have them with me. I love them so much. They're £8 each if you want one, and they've just brought out the hardback version as well. Okay. Another thing that we can do is just sit with the family and the child and look at the iceberg, try and work out, do that as an activity in our planning, and put in more and more structure. The visual timetables, as I've said, in this booklet, the tips on Sunday schools are about, bits of structure and activities that you can do. Things in smaller chunks we mentioned earlier. And also sometimes children just need a bit of a breakout space, and it could be a little sensory area. Sensory things are a really big area to learn about. And if you want to know more, Naomi Graham from New Wine has written this lovely book. It's called Love Surpassing Knowledge. It goes through all the sensory systems, and it talks first about how God has spoken and worked with us through the Bible using all those different senses. So can you think of a story that really uses smell, for example? Yeah, it's a beautiful story, isn't it? So God made us with all our senses. It's really exciting. So we can learn about him through our senses, and it can transform your teaching. Because if you're doing a story and you're actually taking more time over that story, having sensory experiences with each part of the story, you can get so much out of it. And also that stimulates memory as well. You know, having some really strong perfume with that story. Obviously, you've got to be careful of sensory sensitivities. But one of the things that I started doing is writing sensory Bible stories, and for many years I have used them. But just the experiencing of that can be really, really engaging for all children in many ways. But obviously, be careful. But that's a really good book. Be careful of those sensory sensitivities. So thinking about teaching the Bible in different ways than just reading it and then doing a craft activity. There's loads of ways of doing it, doing something practically. And if you're not very crafty yourself or feel that you're not, very creative, you all are, by the way. But there's loads of help out there. There's loads of stuff on the diocese website. There's stuff online. I don't know if you've come across Flame Creative Kids. Mina Nums does a regular blog with all sorts of great sensory activities and practical activities on there. So there's lots of things available now. So teaching the Bible has to be at the core, doesn't it? Because that tells us who Jesus is. And accessing those stories through lots of different ways in which makes sense to the children is really exciting. And actually, I've found that it brings the Bible alive for me in new ways as well. When I think about the sense of that smell in that story and smell something that's really strong and perfumey, you know, it kind of can put you there with it. And you remember that then because the smell evokes that story. A great way to engage people in the Bible. You can also use puppets and drama, being fun stuff. If you're not I'm really into this kind of stuff because I just love it. But drama is something we've used a lot, dressing up, putting things around us and puppets. And I would love to say, again, just if you want help on those things, these books by Amy Robinson is amazing. She's an amazing storyteller. So she uses words and phrases to bring stories alive. You know Bob Hartman as well? She's kind of knows him really well and works with him. But she's written this book. It's called Tales from the Jesse Tree. But it's actually full of storytelling tips. She gives you tips on how to tell stories. But you could teach those tips to the children. And they could learn storytelling, which is, again, involving them. The other thing that Amy's done is written a book about how to use puppets. And again, it's a beginner's guide to how to use puppets, to tell the stories and to engage in the Bible. And that can be fun as well. You don't have to, they're just ideas in lots of different ways. So one of the things that's really, really a big part of my heart is to teach children to pray. Because prayer is where they develop that relationship with Jesus. What we really need to let children know is that they're talking with somebody who knows, understands, accepts and loves them completely. That Jesus knows them better than anybody else. He knows what things they find difficult. He knows the things that they find that other people tell them off for are just things they can't help. He knows when they worry about things, when they're anxious. He knows all that and they can talk to him about it. Prayer can be accessed in so many ways, very practically. One of the very early things that I like to teach is that it's a giving something to God. And yes, it is learning to listen to God replying is another skill, isn't it? But it is a conversation, and what we do is give our burdens to God. And here's a picture of one of the ways, loads of ways you can do this, but this is one of my favourite. This is our prayer tree, and we just use cards of little things that they might want to pray about. I don't know. Yeah, work, homework. That's always a thing, isn't it? That causes a lot of stress. And what we do, we've just put little strings on there, they hang them on the tree. There's loads of prayer space for schools, has some lovely, lovely prayer activities. But prayer's always been a central part of everything we do. And for me, enabling children with additional needs to be servers in the church or the group. They're the ones who pray for others. They're the ones who can read the Bible if we make it accessible for them. So they're not just recipients, they are participants and givers. They need to feel that they belong completely in our church, and by giving them a role, a job, whether it's in main church or in the Sunday school group or the youth group or whatever, that makes them feel that they have something to serve and to give. And we all know that God uses the most unlikely people to do the greatest things sometimes, those who can't. And the amount of people in the Bible who had additional needs. You know, Moses had a speech impediment. You know, we could go through so many people. God uses anybody and everybody. And we need to point these things out to the children, that these people had these additional needs and what God did through them anyway, because that will give them a massive sense of hope. I love that word, hope. It's my favourite word. And one of the things that we also use sometimes is Makaton. So we've got British Sign Language for deaf children, and if you've got a deaf child, please try and learn some of that. There's a deaf church. You can access people who come and teach you things and support you in that. But Makaton is for people with learning disabilities. It's signs that support verbal language. So they just give that extra emphasis so that people can understand what you're saying. The great thing about it slows things down as well. So we did a course with Sarah a few months ago, and at Buckshaw Village Church now, there's a group of us and we Makaton sign with the whole church the memory verse the beginning of every service. It's just beautiful. We are all learning it together. And it opens up that communication. And I keep saying to people, do you know, if any of you meet somebody with learning disabilities who uses Makaton, and you can say to them, Jesus loves you, you've shared the gospel. So, you know, learning little bits of things, there's things online. I'd really like to recommend on YouTube Becky Makaton Tutor, because she's signed some Christian songs and prayers that you can copy and use in your church. And she's the one who did our Makaton training for us. We're going to get her back to Lancashire sometime.
What's her name?
Becky Makaton Tutor. That's what you search on YouTube. So there's loads of resources around and available for them. Obviously, we need to really pray for our children, don't we? And I know that's at the heart of so many people who work with children in church, that we are taking these precious young lives and we don't know where they're going to end up. And I just want to really, really encourage you. When I said that lady who used to take me to church when I was young, she loved me and she prayed for me. She taught me Bible verses, but I went really off the rails in my teenage years. And in that time, she also passed away. And on the day she died, I felt her spirit going to heaven. It was a physical thing that happened that was so beautiful. And it was a little while after that I became a Christian, but I know it's because of her prayers and her care for me. And that is, she died not knowing I'd become a Christian, but everything I do now is in her honour because she prayed for me, and I know that she did. She loved me, she prayed for me, and we can do that for our children too. Okay. These are some quotes from some parents I've been talking to. On the Additional Needs Alliance Facebook page, we have discussions, and I was telling people I was coming today, and I just said, what can you celebrate about your church? And here's just two out of many of the quotes that people said. So, our church is definitely a place of safety where my daughter is loved and accepted, even if they can't all understand her needs. It doesn't matter. It's that love and acceptance, isn't it, that's really key. I am grateful for a church that constantly tries. They don't always get it right and they make mistakes, don't we all? But they always try. That is so appreciated by those families. We are coming to the end now. I've got loads of resources and that handout. What I'll do, I've got your emails from when you booked in on Eventbrite, so I will send that to the person who booked, and if you can pass it around, I'll send you the handout with the slides on. and I'll send you a list of resources as well. Just finally, I want to show you a couple of other things as well. Through the Roof is another charity that's part of the Additional Needs Alliance, and one of the things they do is they support a person in a church to be what they call a roof breaker. Think about the story where the friends took the roof apart, and they take it from that. And what they do then is give you lots of support to be kind of like a special needs coordinator within your church. And I'm a roof breaker, and they're having a conference in Manchester in March, if anybody wants to come with me. But they also provide some really good resources. This one, A Church That Cares, looks at, again, what does good pastoral care look for like these families. So it's quite good to look at what families might need and what the wider church might need to support, not just for the children. And also thinking about parents and their experiences, Andrew and Rachel Wilson are a couple who are church leaders but also have 2 autistic children, and they've written this very honest book about their struggles, but it's always pointing and coming back to God. You know, how does God teach us about how we manage as a family and how we see ourselves through these struggles, and how we find the joy and the hope for our children in the future. So, I've been reading this recently, and I can see I've dog-eared it. Oh, it's not loud, is it? But it's a great book as well. There's loads of things happening and out there, and I really want to thank you so much. I hope you found something that was useful today. If you want to email me any questions or ask me to come to your church and give some support, I'm willing to do that, and we'll fit everybody in somehow. We'll just do it. But thank you so much, and I just have such joy that God will help you. So let's finish with prayer. Is that all right? Do you want to do it, Sarah?
No.
All right. Okay. All I'm going to do is pray. Heavenly Father, thank you for being with us. Just seep into our hearts what we need to learn and take on board, and give us the strength, the courage, the wisdom to go and do your will and bring these children and families into our churches and rejoice as part of the body of Christ. Help us when we feel weak to remember that you are strong and that you've promised to give us everything we need. Bless these people here tonight, Lord. Bless them, giving their time up, and send them away with a seed of joy that they can be wonderful people of the gospel. In Jesus' name, amen.
We hope that you've enjoyed listening to this talk. For more resources and training, please visit the resource area at bdeducation.org.uk.